Welcome everyone to the Let's Get Vulnerable podcast. We have a very special guest with us today. We have Kathleen Keane. Welcome, Kathleen.
Hello. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
So excited to have you. So not only is Kathleen a graduate of the Empowered.Secure Loved program, she is also now one of our amazing coaches inside of the program. So this is a special treat. I'm really excited to have a conversation with you. And I want to give the audience a little bit of your background.
Sure.
So Kathleen, as I said, is a graduate of the Empowered.Secure Loved program. She's also a licensed mental health counselor, self-identified nerd. We have so much of this in common, Kathleen. I love it. She's consuming any and all books, podcasts, and courses on attachment theory, IFS, and RLT. Those are, remind me again.
So,
internal family systems and relational life theory.
Yep.
That's what we were talking about. So wonderful interventions for relationships. And also she's reading a variety of self-development content. She feels most aligned with her purpose when connecting and walking alongside people in their efforts to navigate self-discovery, healing, and embodying and loving their most authentic self. Kathleen is genuinely thrilled to be part of Dr. Morgan's team. Yes. And eager to utilize the amazing curriculum that has been life-changing in her own life. And now she's getting to support and coach all the courageous women inside of the program. And in her personal life, she loves lifting weights, spending time with family and friends, trying to keep her sneaker and athleisure obsession in check, and getting outside when the Florida heat allows it. Yes. I love it so much.
Yes, all the things. Especially all the stuff about like RLT. I'm so excited to be a part of this program because it was so important to me and, like I said, life-changing. So I'm excited for all of it.
Should we just do a podcast on athletic wear instead?
I mean, please. Although I'm trying to keep it in check. But my sneaker obsession and leggings are just, it's hard to justify.
What's your favorite athletic wear brand right now? Side tangent.
There's this Australian brand. Randomly.
Is it Lorna Jane?
No, but I have some of those. I love that brand too. I'm trying to remember. It's like ECHT.
Oh yeah,
the letter. Yep. Yes. And so I have those, and then I really like Balance, and
I've heard that. You're giving me a new one to try. The ECHT. Yeah. And they're very affordable.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I love it.
All. And
amazing.
I'm not a good influence when it comes to pulling in that habit. I will encourage anyone to indulge. I almost feel like I get my my needs met by encouraging other people to.
I'm the worst. Yeah. So Bozeman has this store called Lux Society, believe it or not, Bozeman, Montana, and it is all of the best athletic wear in one store. Kind of like dangerous. It's like so dangerous. But anytime I have someone visiting, I take them there. So I am an enabler when it comes to athletic wear.
I am too. Most of the time I am holding people accountable to their best self. But when it comes to that, I will support nonsense.
Hey, I love it. We have that in common. Okay. Well, all of that aside, Kathleen, really excited to hear about your journey. And I love that we have the mental health training as a background. And I think one of the things I've learned is that even though we know all the things to do, and maybe we're helping people in this area of their lives, it's a whole lot different to actually apply it to ourselves.
Absolutely.
And actually being in the health professions, I think it makes you vulnerable to just taking care of everyone else instead of yourself. Cause that's what you're drawn to doing. You're a caretaker. So I can't wait to hear your story and kind of before the program, what life was like and all your takeaways. So tell us a little bit about prior to doing the work inside the program.
Sure. So before the program, similar to what you were just talking about, as a therapist, I was so invested and doing so much work and helping my clients through a lot of these things with relationships and attachment. I love attachment theory. And doing well at work, really feeling like I was confident in what I was doing and showing up and feeling good about being in my purpose. And I've done a lot of therapy since grad school, which feels like many moons ago, and have been working on self-esteem and my own attachment stuff. And it was translating in pretty much every area of my life, except for dating. But I think that from an outside perspective, it would seem like I had everything kind of together, but there was this kind of confusion from family and friends about like why I wasn't dating or what was going on in my day. I have this career that I'm building and feeling really good about. My friends and family relationships are growing and blossoming. My faith was growing. I was going to the gym every morning. Like I was doing all these things that align with, from an outside, looks like healthy, happy living, which it was in so many ways. And it was not translating to my relationship life. And it was either like avoiding it completely, like kind of tucking it away, and just focusing on all these other things that I had going for me that I felt good about, that I felt like I could navigate from a space of confidence and knowing and feeling like I wasn't going to mess it up per se. Or I was making it a priority and feeling completely overwhelmed by it in a way that, through the work that I'd been doing in therapy, I had felt more confident showing up to the first part of dating. I could go on dates and could know like, okay, I'm changing this mindset from will they like me to am I feeling this connection, and how am I feeling? And I could do all of that. And I was confident in that space. But inevitably, I went from these like long-term relationships that were the typical anxious attachment connected to avoidant attachment, and stayed in it too long, and it was really toxic. So I'd gotten out of that phase through therapy and healed some of those things. But when it came to dating from that secure attachment that seemed to be in all other areas of my life, it would start off with boundaries and confidence, and then it would just get to this point where, in a very bizarre and familiar way, this insecurity and anxiety and anxious attachment would just creep back in, and the relationship would inevitably end. And even though logically I knew it was the feelings that were being like triggered in that space couldn't have anything to do with the person that I was getting to know, because I didn't know them long enough to have such a strong reaction. But I couldn't figure out how to, I'd done this attachment work. Like it just didn't make sense. And there was something missing. Right. So I knew that I 100% was bringing my own stuff to the table, but I couldn't figure out how it was working everywhere else but here. And I was over therapy at this point as a therapist. And that's probably, says quite a bit, because I can understand why people get burnt out from therapy. And I didn't know what to do. So my typical response to that is like, read and consume everything. And I found your podcast because I must have typed in like attachment and relationships or something, and your podcast came up, and I had been like trying to sort through a couple of them. I had found a few and listened to one or two of their episodes, and I just wasn't catching on. And so I listened to yours, and I think I probably listened to 90% of and this was like only a few months ago, really. So I went through like a binging of all of your episodes. And the way that you would talk about attachment theory and normalize all these things that I was feeling, but couldn't bridge this gap between, felt really different than how I had talked about it in therapy.
I want to pause you just for a second, just because you've said so many great things.
I do that. I say so many things.
No, I love it. I love it. The fact that you opened up about, hey, from the outside, it looked like I had all these areas of my life together. And you did, career going well, faith going well, you're in the gym every day. So everything looks really great. And then even getting to the point where, okay, you were dating, you had more confidence dating, but then realizing this pattern of, okay, at some point, as I'm trying to build a long-term relationship, I'm having these anxious internal responses where I'm wanting to push people away, right? Like I'm having these things come up and realizing that it, you know, the key word here is that it was disproportionate to the relationship. And so then you're realizing I have to do something different.
Yes.
So there's a lot there. I think like one of the things I want to point out is that as women, we get to have it all. I think sometimes we think like, I'll just be fine with my career.
Yeah.
I'll travel around the world with my girlfriends. I'll blah, 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 blah. But no, you get to have an amazing career and an amazing relationship. So you have to realize that.
Right. That I deserve that because I want it. Because I want it. If I didn't want it to be a different thing, but I do want it and I deserve it. And then I think that's what's so weird about that space of when internally I know that something's missing and that this isn't translating and I want it so badly to translate and that it's not. So there's this frustration with myself of like, why can't I make it work here and not in this one specific space that is important to me? But I think there's also this added layer of expectation that comes from people that's intended to be loving, of almost like, well, why can't you be happy with what you have? Like you have so much and like you have so many things to be grateful for, and you know, you're so blessed in all these areas and you're doing so well, and some people don't have. And so there's this like internal tug of war that goes on of like, I do want it and I know in a certain way that I deserve it, but then I almost feel guilty that I'm like, well, I deserve that too, in addition to these other things that I have that are
other
really
people's standards will sometimes muddy your own standards.
Right.
Which is not a good game to play, because then you're living your life based on other people's standards. So having to come back to that inner knowing of like, hey, maybe their life went that way, or those are their standards, but hey, like what are my standards, right? And I know that something's off and that I'm being blocked from something that I really want. So I love that distinction.
I think it was if I could see the translation of the work that I had already done, and I knew that came from me. No one else was doing the work in therapy to work on my self-esteem and what I could get to in attachment in therapy. I had to do all that, and I saw the change. So I knew that I could make it work. I just was getting so stuck with like, why in this specific area that I feel like has been the reason why I even start to explore attachment. Why else other than relationship? And that that's the one area that it was like, no, this isn't gonna work. Awesome.
I love it. So you were brave enough to have that realization of, hey, I get to have it all. And then also, okay, I'm the common denominator. All of us have that common denominator moment. And it's like, damn it, I can't blame the dating apps. I can't blame the dating pool. It's me. Hi, it's me. I'm the problem, right?
I'm the problem.
So so you got to that point. You listened to 90% of the podcast episodes.
Obsessively, like crazy. And I also listen to podcasts on double speed. So nothing about my approach to this is like normal, but so I'm like listening to these podcasts at the gym and like obsessively, like, and you're talking about the program, and I'm hearing some of the podcasts that you're having people that have finished the program, graduated from the program. And it wasn't I knew I needed to do the program, right? So I'm listening to these podcasts, I'm identifying with how you're moving through the information, I'm hearing these people talk about their experience, and I'm like, this is something about what is here has not been what I've been getting in therapy or my deep dives into like understanding these concepts on my own, and I need to do it. And trying to really solidify, I kind of went to this place of, which I think most people do, on I'm going to like invest in myself, and knowing that that's a loving act. And almost out of what you think you're supposed to do, feeling hesitant to do it, right? Like you're going to put money into yourself. And so I started to go down that path a little bit of like thinking about finances or whatever. And really what it came down to, and what I could the only question I could come up with that would answer whether or not I need to do this program is like, why not? Like if I can find a why not, that is valid. If I need to save for it first, and it would be more of a why not now versus maybe I need to do this later. Do I have the time to do it? Can I prioritize this in a way that's going to allow me to dive into it the way that I want? Can I make the time for it, which is a choice that I would have to make, right? And I had no answers that weren't just an excuse.
Oh, you have so much gold here, because I think what people don't realize is we're so programmed not to invest in ourselves, especially as women. Oh my God.
Right.
Like we're supposed to show up for everyone else. And, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you can spend money on your physical appearance, go get your hair done, your nails done, all that. Right. But when you say like, no, I'm investing in me, and this is inner work that's for me, there can be so much resistance to that. And that can be a byproduct of self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
Of
100%.
like, I don't feel worthy of investing in me. So just the radical act of investing in you helps your self-worth automatically.
100%. Yeah, it's an intrinsic message of I'm taking care of something, so it must be important. And if that thing is me, then it's hard to deny that at least part of me thinks I'm important, right? So it's like that intrinsic message to reinforce what I'm trying to get to. And I also realized that, you know, if I were dating someone and they were to come to me and be like, I want to do this thing for myself, and it's going to be, you know, I'm going to have to put in time and money into it, but it's going to be for my development, there would be zero hesitation to be like, please do it. Like, how can I help you, support you in doing that for you? And so it just didn't make sense not to. And then, so I think I scheduled to do a call that next week after I kind of had that conversation with myself, and spoke with Amy, and she's amazing, and reassured that all the things that I had questions about, especially as a therapist, right? So I know all these things. I know attachment theory. I've read the books. I've read Attached. I've read The Power of Attachment, and I've done Diane Poole courses and all that stuff. And so the other part of me that starts to like creep in is like, is this the right program where it's not going to be the same stuff I've already heard? And Amy immediately reassured me, which in all of like very important and valid ways of, you know, the depth in which I go in this information is where I take it, and that at any level of awareness of attachment theory can be beneficial to dive into this program. And I 100% validate that by being in the program and understanding the curricula and all that stuff. So so that was my process.
And I love it. I love it because I think a lot of the amazing women that we help, they have a lot of awareness, and maybe they've read Attached, and maybe they've been read in
therapy, right?
Jay Shetty's book, and then they read somebody else's book, and they're a lot of the women we get to help are really smart, 100%. You know, which I love, because that was me. Like, you know, like I knew all this stuff logically, but then I think you and I know it's a whole different experience to do this inner work and to actually embody becoming securely attached instead of just like 100%. Knowing what it is.
Yeah, 100%. To the point of just the vulnerability that goes into letting someone see the progression towards that goal instead of the finished product. It's like, here, I've done it. I've listened to the podcast. I've read the book, and it's that vulnerability that goes into being messy and knowing it, but not knowing how to implement it, or that confusion and letting someone into that space.
Brain awareness, logical awareness is totally different than emotional internalizing, which I know that was something you and I talked about in our early coaching calls. Which
that was our first coaching call, which for me, I think that changed everything for me. I think that was one of the most important aha moments. And I don't know if you want me to go into it now, but
sure, go for it.
But the idea that on our first call, and I loved it too, because I think that in the space of, we were talking, you were getting to know kind of where I was at with the program, because it was our first time speaking. And I was kind of giving you this whole dialogue around attachment and where I was at, my anxious attachment, all this stuff. And you lovingly, but also in a like calling me out way, which I love, because I think people are afraid to call me out because I know what I'm talking about. But I'm like, please call me out. Someone, please. Because I don't want to be the one that knows it all because I'm missing something here. But you like lovingly called me out and like, you have told me so much information and there's like no emotion in any of it. Like it's so intellectualized and that's such a defense mechanism. And, you know, the healing of all of this stuff includes the emotional piece of that, which opened the door to like mother wound and I'm too much. And I mean,
yeah,
for a 30-minute call, I was just blown away by how much we talked about and how much it got right to the core of these pieces that I had truly been going through the motions in a way that for so long had been soothing for me, but it wasn't healing for me. It was calming for the
yeah.
sake of not disrupting instead of calming for the sake of actually like caring for myself. And
Yes.
that in itself was just changed my experience throughout the rest of the program because using that information to then look at the beliefs, to then look at all these ways that I was navigating vulnerability in a less vulnerable way than I thought I was, unintentionally, but still, like it was a cop out.
you were showing up in ways that let you feel comfortable.
100%. And it reaffirmed a belief that it also kept me in connection, that if I were to let someone into the emotional piece of things, that if I were to feel it all instead of intellectualize it all and show the emotion, that was going to lead to disconnection because that was too much. Because my emotions were too much. I felt too much. I was too sensitive, and that made people uncomfortable. And so if I could intellectualize it, show that I had a grip on it, it also muted the emotional expression of it because I could talk myself essentially out of the emotion.
I kind of have to laugh a little bit because it's like, what a great career, right?
I mean, right? All day long, all day long. I really got expert level in intellectualizing and
And you're
experience.
so damn smart. We know this about you. It's like, it's such an amazing quality that you have. So we don't ever want to, we want to say,
Sure.
wow, that was a great coping skill. It's done a lot for me. And it's really blocked me from connecting in the way that I want to connect, in the way that I deserve to connect.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And it still plays its part. It's just not in the same order. And it serves to take me further after I've done the part that I was trying to skip. So by skipping over the emotional experience part and going into like intellectualizing, that has a purpose and it doesn't need to go away.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I can't skip over the feelings
Yeah,
part.
your intellect, all the things that you know, that's such a beautiful part of who you are, and you still get to share that with people and show up that way. And you get to have other tools of being emotionally vulnerable and sharing how you feel and expressing what your needs are, right? Like you get to have all of it available to you instead of having that one tool of, I'll take care of you and I'll show you how smart I am. And then I won't need anything from you. And then you won't
Right.
abandon me. Right.
Right. Right. I will be a contributor to your life and I will not ask for too much because then you'll leave.
Yeah.
Which, yeah,
And so I I love I loved your willingness to really take my direct feedback that I gave you and then really use that to help you for the rest of the program. And I'm curious, were there any particular exercises or anything that you did that helped you have those aha moments?
for sure. Another call that we had, you had building off of the previous one that we were just speaking on, you had told me to schedule to have a breakdown, which seems so
Yeah.
silly, and I get it. But in the space of taking that information and actually leaning into the discomfort of feeling all the things that I had been talking myself out of for several reasons, but mostly because it's like, it's really not too much. This belief that I had, which again goes back to all of the belief work in the curricula, but pulling from that part of this core belief that I'm too much, right? That if I'm raw and real and unfiltered, that's too much for people and they will get overwhelmed and not know what to do with it. And so just put that away. To give myself enough space to almost lean into that fear and be too much, to see that it really isn't all that much, and that it is, it's not too much. It makes me in a way that is endearing, I think, in a lot of ways, less like the only word I can think of right now is disgust, like moving away from. But I think it's vulnerable, and I think that to have both the ability to show up and be supportive, I think people want to feel like they can give back to that. So letting people into that vulnerability and letting people see that messiness also gives them a chance to like step in a way that they deserve to also. I don't need to be the expert in that space all the time. It's not very fair to them either.
It opens you up to reciprocal connection.
Exactly. And that is what I crave. Yeah. But I can't get there without the messy part first.
Yeah. So good. And that belief work, was that different than anything that you had done in therapy?
Yes. Because of the fact that the curricula, it just builds off of itself. So like you just keep building. And I think that belief work itself can be helpful regardless of what level or what way you dive into it, how deep you go into it. It can be helpful in just the concept and understanding thoughts and core beliefs, all that stuff. But the way that everything became a building on from, and we're not going to leave that behind. We're going to bring it into the next piece of this. I think that with the belief work that you have in your program and then tying that to the repetition compulsion, I loved that piece of it. And really understanding how ingrained that belief work is and how it shows up in so many areas, and that the secure you, I mean, all of these things where you're almost putting side by side the place that you're in and the place that you want to be, and making the connection and feeling the difference in both of those spaces, because then it creates an awareness to when you're out of alignment with this version that you're working on and that you deserve to be in securely attached you. But I think that for the way that you put this together, you allowed for the space of where the beliefs are at and how you're coming into the program. And you immediately, even with the warning alignment, immediately introduced this idea that what you want is achievable. And I think that putting those things side by side throughout the program helped to feel a little less overwhelming. Like it kept this heaviness of old beliefs alongside of excitement and hopefulness of what could be and what you can create. And I think that one without the other can feel a little bit inauthentic.
I'm glad that you realize that. That's so intentional, because I think if we're just looking at the past, if we're just focused on our trauma, if that's all we're talking about and we're processing and we're looking at these unhelpful beliefs, that can feel so heavy. And then it's not really giving us that pull forward and that real desire to change. So it's very intentional to do that identity work of, yes, we got to revisit your past. Because that's part of it. And all the coaches out there that say, oh, if you just write about the life you want, it's going to happen. Like, I'm sorry, bullshit, right?
Right. 100%.
You know, we got to visit the past, but let's also create the identity that is your highest and best self, create the securely attached you. Let's do both. And I think that was what was different for me specifically from psychotherapy, is a lot of that deep identity work and intentionally creating your highest and best self and your securely attached self.
Yeah. And you really, I mean, I think that through the curricula, and then the Facebook group, and then the group calls, which were great, and the one-on-one calls, it allows for these big concepts that you're moving through to feel like you could bring it into real time and see other people move through it a little bit differently, which then sparks an idea or inspires something or normalizes that it's going to be an up and down process. So I think that there's just so many aspects of how it brings in community and support, and you're learning along the way, and we're talking about the things, and people are having successes and struggles throughout it, and they're posting about it, and people are being encouraging, and it makes the what you're reaching for part of it feel realistic without this what I think social media does of this highlight reel that makes it look like if it's not easy, then you're not doing it right. It makes the struggle part of it and normalizes that, and then puts you in position to almost like really bring to light this idea of who you're trying to be and how much you have access to that, and you almost become like your own wisdom coach throughout with it, like the securely attached to you document that you have us do with, like, you can coach yourself through those hard moments through accessing a part of you that is made by you, is put together and thought through by you, which you know yourself better than anyone else. So I think it's just
I love
step into
that you
your power.
noticed that. And hence empowered,
Yes, I love it.
because
Exactly.
because this was another part of the program I realized is, and I'm sure you know this as a therapist, that people can become too dependent
Yep.
on a therapist, and actually, teaching you how to self-soothe, teaching you how to show up for yourself, teaching you how to realign your highest and best self so that you can do that at any time.
Absolutely.
And you're not like waiting on a therapist, right? Like, I just think there's so much there for empowering yourself. And hey, I love therapy. I know you do as well.
I love therapy.
We love it.
Therapy. Yeah.
We love it. It gives people so much awareness. But when you're looking for like really empowering yourself and like implementing the change, I think coaching is a really good model for that.
Yeah. And the realness, you have an amazing team of people. It's clear that you've been so intentional. And so I think that walking through this process, not only with people who are part of this community, which it just naturally attracts these, strong women who feel relatable and real, but also are fighting for the quality of life that they deserve. And so you put that alongside coaches that you've brought in that have done the program, so it's not this like disconnection, and they're talking in a way of like, yeah, this is hard, and there's not um the level of separation of expert and client. It's we're in this together, and it feels authentic, that there's really a investment in that.
I love that so much.
Yeah, I love it. And which is why I was so excited about the program as I dove into it, why I'm so excited to be a part of this team. I feel like it represents so much of, again, what's been so life changing for me, what I still do, what I still use the curricula, revisit it from wherever I'm at and learn as I go even more about myself. So it's something that it's not hard to sell when it's so truly important in my own day to day.
Well, we are just so happy having you on the team. I am so thrilled for all of our amazing clients, because I know they're going to benefit so much from all your knowledge as well. Kathleen, I feel like there's a ton of things we could talk about. I wanted to ask you, because I'm sure people want to know this, but like, how is your life different after the program? And then I guess specifically going into dating, relationships, etc., how that's changed after doing the program for you.
Awesome. Yeah. So not only is it like an internal change, people in my life know and notice and were seeing me through the process of like trying to figure this all out. Know I joined the program because I was talking about this, and have continually commented on like how proud of me they are, or how excited they are for me, because there is a shift in how I think through situations, how I navigate conflict, how I address communication or boundaries. I'm showing up for me in a way that doesn't do any less for the people in my life, but I'm honoring myself in a way that they're excited to see, because they care about me, and they see how there's a level of confidence, but I was doing the confidence thing, but now I'm embodying it in a way that allows me to show up in a more authentic way. They're seeing more emotion because I'm showing it more, and they feel like they can support me instead of me being the person that always supports. And they appreciate being able to see that vulnerability and walk alongside me in those situations. And so in that aspect of my life, I feel like not only do I feel like I'm being my own advocate and loving myself well, but my friends and my family all notice it and are excited for me and celebrate those wins with me, as well as feel like they can get closer to a real me, because I'm not having to protect parts of myself. They're all there and taken care of consistently.
Yes.
So it's more me 2.0. I guess. And then
I
with
love
dating,
this.
yeah.
I just want to, because this is such an important distinction, that securely attached Kathleen is also vulnerable.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sensitive to things. It's funny. I cry at things, and I think that I've always cried about things, but it was more of like I'd watch a movie and I cry like every movie. But now I get affected by things in a way that is more in the moment rather than privately, and about my own life, not just about other people's experiences. And my friends like that. Not that they like to see me struggle by any means, but they actually feel like I'm trusting them more to show up for me.
That's
So
beautiful.
yeah, it's again, life changing. I can't speak highly enough of how much has changed and continues to change, because it's again buildable. And then with dating, I'm still dating. I take breaks from the apps every once, and mind you, before this, like there was such a level of avoidance. I would get on these apps um and swipe all day long, and I would never message anyone. I would never respond to any messages. I was the reason why people don't like dating apps. Like I was the problem. Again, problem. And I hated them, and I had such a bad attitude about them. And there was anxiety around it, and just bitterness.
Yeah.
And
No, you're describing how so many people feel.
I
Just
get it.
the
I've been
walls
there.
are up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it feels odd to try to um, connect or figure out if someone is someone that you would want to connect with on that type of platform. And it's also the reality of where we're at right now, and that's okay. And things change, and adjustment and change, and learning how to navigate it in an authentic way is going to look different for me than it may for someone else, and that's okay. But I think knowing there isn't a right way, other than not trying or doing it the way that I was, which was such a like fake effort towards it. I was like, I'll get the app, I'll do the profile, and I'll just swipe all day and never respond to anyone. So that was before. And now I take breaks every once in a while, because I do think that it can be a little bit overwhelming, in the sense of it's really easy to, oh, I'm not doing anything, let me just open the app, right? And start swiping and not really be thoughtful or intentional about it. But I am on the apps now, and I am dating, and I'm having more fun with it. I'm not taking things as seriously. We talked about this when I was in the program. It's like a supplemental aspect of things. It's not all of it, and not keeping things on the app too long, and having these intentional boundaries around what it looks like, how much before I'm like, okay, this isn't going anywhere, and I'm not going to force it, but I'm also not going to keep giving it energy. And meeting up with someone at first is a brief interaction, and it's just to kind of get a feel for things, and then it can build from there. And I have my own personal boundaries around, you know, where I will let it go, as far as like vulnerability and showing up and giving people my time and energy is probably a better way to put that. Based on meeting the level of commitment that I'm receiving rather than trying to like prove that I deserve more. And I'm trying to have fun with it, with letting people want to get to know me and trying to just be more and more comfortable with show up and just be you. There isn't a standards, not expectations, right? I think that was just your last podcast because I still obsessively listen to them. And like understanding that going in with clear standards of what I deserve, but not putting those expectations on someone so that I am seeing it through a lens of like what I hope they will be. I'm just going to meet someone where they're at and see where it goes. And I check in now enough to trust my own intuition in the process of how it's feeling for me. And so it's such a different feeling. And there's parts of my life that I love about being single. And I do want a relationship, and enjoying the process instead of just focusing on an outcome has been my intentional effort of like how the energy I want to show up with to all of it, whether it's dating or meeting new people, that I like who I am. And I like that I am not perfect, but I'm willing to grow. And if someone is not going to see that, or someone is looking for something or finding inadequacies in me, that's okay. And they're not even wrong for it. It's just not for me. And that's okay.
Rejection is redirection.
Absolutely. And I firmly believe, and I'm grateful for that. Grateful for the things that don't work out or don't go as planned, because I'm trusting that it's not my standards being too high. It's indication that I do deserve the things that I know are good for me, and that it's really relieving to know that I don't have to try to force someone into that role. And if they're not in it, then that's okay. Like someone else will be.
There's a few things you're saying here that I hear a lot of our program grads say, which is you are intentionally dating. So you're aware of how you're showing up. You are enjoying it. You're allowing yourself to enjoy the process, which is huge. You're being authentic. And then this is a really key one where you're not wasting time. You're not trying to make something work. You're aware when something doesn't meet the standards, and you move on, and you don't let that mean anything about you or your worthiness. And you're not spending months and months and months in a situationship
or for me, history of years in that situation. So really cut that down, which is a great win.
That's one of my favorite things, is helping women not waste their time.
Yes, it's so important and it's so valuable. And not to say that dating isn't at times frustrating either, but I think it also, since this program, it makes that part okay and not defining. And it still hurts, or it feels like a twinge of disappointment, or even potentially feeling like rejection. But I don't feel scared of that, nor do I feel overly like I have to identify with it. I can recognize it. I can sit with it. I can show up for myself in that. And it is the way that I feel it is not too much. And I know how to respond to it in a loving way now.
So you're moving through it so much differently, where 100%. It's like something maybe would have taken 3 months or 6 months to get over it. Maybe now it's taking a few days, a week, 100%. Right?
A few days. And those few days suck. And they don't feel like I'm dreading and not knowing that it's going to end. It's like, this is part of it and it'll be over soon. And that's okay. This is also learning. And I think that that's where it's also a little bit different. My brain goes to like opportunities for growth and learning. And I love that. And this growth mindset aspect is so important to my life and my values, and is important in the person that I'm going to be with. But these moments are hard, and I learn so much more about myself in hard moments than the moments that are easy, because those are things that I've already learned that I'm putting into place that feel really good. But there's so much more I gain from and learn about myself and get to know myself better in those hard moments, to learn what hurts me and what I need. And how it feels to be loving versus harsh, and how I respond to that, and how I deserve to be met with a curious response of like, I don't want to create, no, I don't want someone who's okay with hurting me that way. Because I wouldn't be okay with making someone else feel that way. So all of those things are beneficial steps in the process. So I'm much more willing to look at it as this is part of the equation and it's useful. It's not just hurt and pain and loss of time.
So powerful.
Yeah.
There's no failure in dating. There's only learning. You hear me say
Yep.
that
Yep.
in the
All the
program
time. Yep.
over and over and over.
Yep.
This has been so, so good. I want to ask you just a couple more questions,
Sure.
but I know that already people are going to really appreciate everything that you've shared. I think one question I would have for you is just the person who's listening to this, who's like, oh, it worked for Kathleen.
Yeah.
It's not going to work for me. Like I'm too
Right.
broken, or it's too late for me, or, you know, like the person who's doubting themselves, what would you say to them?
I would say to know that you have been with you your whole life. And you do know you, and you may feel distant from that right now. And that's that belief that feels like it won't work for you specifically. But that's just an indication of, the world has taught you to disconnect from you, but you do know you, and getting the path back to you is so much more clear when you have support in place, and someone who's guiding you through, and these steps that you can take to get closer to that. And that the feeling of it won't work for me is not, it's fear. And that's okay to be scared, but call it fear and not knowing if it will work for you rather than deciding it won't. Because the moment that you open yourself up to recognizing that if anyone can learn about you, it is the person that's been with you the whole time. And so it's never too late to learn more about you. It's never too late to get closer and get back to you. But that you've always known you, the world taught you to move away from that. And this program, if you're feeling that way, is a blessing in that there's already so much evidence. There's so many women who have done this program, coaches that are passionate, and curricula that is helpful, that there are answers. And I would bet that many people who have successfully completed your program can relate to that. I know I can relate to that as a therapist. I've been well, maybe it's just not for me. I can help people with it, but for me, it's just not going to work. And I know all the information, and I'm helping people through it. And so I so know that feeling. And it was just because I had gotten so distant from myself, but not because I wasn't capable of getting back to me. And once you start the process of getting to know yourself again, there's almost like, it's like muscle memory. Like there are things that are so familiar that I forgot were familiar, that you deserve to feel. And so my encouragement to women who are feeling that way is I've been there, and I know that feeling, and I know how defeating that is. And you're not alone in it. And that is a belief that is based in an attempt to protect you, but you deserve to show up for you, and just take a step towards that.
I love
It's
that
worth
so
it.
much. You pointed out so many really beautiful things there about coming home to yourself, and how we can get so disconnected from our inner knowings. And then also just calling out fear. Fear has a lot of disguises. It'll show up in so many different ways. And I think when we can just acknowledge that it's fear and call it out, we can be really empowered to take action anyways. I think the times I've changed my life the most, I was scared and I did it anyways. So I think it's kind of like training yourself of like, hey, yeah, maybe I am a little scared, and maybe that's a good thing because my comfort zone hasn't worked out for me.
Exactly. The fear that has been keeping you disconnected from you and making you believe that you aren't capable of secure attachment or healthy relationship has gotten you to exactly where you are now. And if you don't want to stay there, you've got to try something different.
You got to do something different. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So many good things. I know we could talk forever. I really want to encourage people, if they want to connect with you. Obviously, you are one of our coaches, one of our amazing coaches inside the program. So you can meet with Kathleen in the program. Also, if they wanted to just connect with you on social media, if you're open to that.
Yeah, of course. Right now I'm taking a Instagram break, but I am planning to get back on now in this month. So my handle is KitKat, KITKAT 588. And so I will give you that information.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. Yeah.
Anyone can reach out. I'm happy to answer questions. 100%.
Yeah.
In the program, the one-on-one coaching calls, I'm excited for those. I'm looking forward to talking with women. I'm going to doing the groups, all that. So through the Facebook group and one-on-one calls and Instagram.
I want to just hype you up for a second. I don't even think people know what an asset you are, and just how much you know and how much expertise you bring, and the fact that you've been through the program and that you've really changed your life. Like, Kathleen is such an asset. Like, you really are.
I appreciate that.
We're truly lucky to have you on our staff. Yeah. So anyways, I just hope people really do know that. So yeah, no, it's so true.
I appreciate it. I think it's, I don't think that I would have been able to hear or accept that before the program. I think it would have made me super uncomfortable. But I think in this space, and again, I think everyone is capable of getting there, that this environment, this community helps to show you what you are truly capable and deserving of. And I think that in that space, I think that the only reason why these things have happened, why there's been an opportunity to be a part of your team, for example, is the work that I did in this program attracted that level of opportunity that I don't think I would have been ready for or able to step into in the way that I am now without the program. So
yeah, the fact that when we had an opening that you came to mind, I mean, that obviously, because we do get a ton of people that apply. And I want to just say, like, we're so selective, as you know, like all of our support coaches are incredible. So
they really are.
Yeah, but no, I agree with you that you showing up with like real self-love and real confidence and that secure way of being was like, as soon as we had an opening, like, oh yeah, of course, I'm going to call Kathleen.
So excited. I love that. Yeah. And that's the product of this program.
No, I love that. I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you've been so amazing. And it's such an honor to work with people like you, and it fills my cup up. It keeps me going. So I appreciate you so much. You've listened to the podcast. I always ask my guests this question, so I'm gonna ask you.
Love it.
You're walking down the street, you have a random person come up to you and they say, Kathleen, what's your best life advice of the moment? Doesn't have to be of your entire life, but today, right now, what would be your best life advice?
Today, right now, it would be to start getting back to knowing yourself. And that could be a small step of, at the end of your day, asking yourself and answer, whether it's out loud or journaling it, like, how are you doing it? The same way that you would ask a best friend or a partner, how was your day today, and how are you feeling? And to do so in a way that is removing the expectation that I know so many women, myself included in this, that showing up for people, that also comes with a pattern of people pleasing. I think that for so long I didn't get to know myself, because I think that how I showed up for other people is if they brought their stuff to me, I felt obligated to do something with it, to fix it, to help them. And that I think that one of the most loving gestures you can do is just listen and be curious in the same way that you would for any other person that you love, to the simple questions of like, how are you feeling? And remove the expectation. You don't have to do anything with that information. You don't have to take action if you're feeling upset or hurt or whatever in an important relationship, to just be curious enough to want to know the answer. And even if it helps to remove that expectation, like, don't do anything with it. Just ask. And that, I think, is the one of the most loving ways to show up for yourself. I know that affirmations are also part of the program, and I believe in so much. And I think that one of the reasons affirmations used to be so hard for me, was I understood the brain science of, neural paths and resistance around creating a new neural path when there's one already there and practiced and ingrained, and what you don't use, you lose. So this is so practiced that it's going to be, without even thinking about it, practicing old beliefs. But there's this other layer of actions speak louder than words. I think that a lot of people talk about that in relationships. If I'm telling myself I'm worth showing up for, but I'm also simultaneously at the end of the day being like, oh, I don't even want to check in with myself because it's like too much. If I'm telling myself I'm too much work, but I'm telling myself at the same time, like, but I'm worthy of being loved, that makes it that part of me that is like, but you keep telling me to shut up. Like, do you really love me? I want to believe you that you love me, but you keep also telling me like, okay, it's too much. I don't want to check in. I don't even want to think about it. And so just that act does so many things. And if you just start there, you will see yourself in a way that, again, feels familiar. And I think it's just a really loving way to make space for you.
So good. Well, there's our next episode that you and I do.
There we go. Love it.
Because I talk, in the program, I'm always talking about that relationship with yourself. And we talk about setting a timer on your phone 3 times a day, check in with you, because you're absolutely right. You have to have the behaviors that back up the beliefs, because our brains are smart. If those behaviors are not there, we're not going to believe the new beliefs. So that's great, tangible advice for anybody listening. They can go just start showing up with the behaviors like you really care about yourself and you want to know how you're doing.
Right. Right. And that curiosity lends itself to, even if I don't fully buy into that new affirmation, I have all this evidence that I'm trying, and effort translates so much more than outcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I feel like all of those things, and I think this, my encouragement to anyone questioning this process for themselves, and dating and attachment and all of these things, and that this program also creates that time and structure around, if you want to do it, you have to make the time for it. And that in itself is another loving gesture. And if I could make time for groups and one-on-one calls and doing this coursework, where is there justification that I can't check in with myself at the end of the day and just see how I'm feeling? And so all of those acts of showing up for yourself that translate to beliefs that actually stick and feel so like, it's just like coming home to yourself. It's a warm hug.
I love it. Yeah. And sometimes we need something like this program to create that external accountability of, hey, you need to show up for yourself. Right. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Kathleen, this has been so good. I just want to thank you so much for being an incredible client, an incredible part of our team. I know people listening are going to love this episode. And obviously, if you want to join us inside of the program, we would love to coach you. We'd love to support you on your journey. And we will have the application link in the show notes. And I know in August, actually, we're doing a really great deal. It's my birthday month, so we're giving people a bonus.
Of course, you would on your birthday give people things. That makes so much sense.
Right? That's the best way to celebrate. So you get a bonus month in the program at this time. So yeah, don't miss out on that offer. It's a really great deal. And then come hang out with Kathleen and I. We'd love to coach you.
Please. Yeah, I would. I'm excited, and I thank you so much for having me. And I am privileged and blessed to be a part of this team, and I'm excited to show up and hang out with all these people that are doing the real work.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Kathleen, thank you. Thank you. And of course, I know both of us were wishing the audience high self-worth and great relationships. We'll talk to you soon.